Josh, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to chat.
Yeah, no, it's an honor to be here, and I'm excited. This is gonna be some fun.
Yeah, super excited. So tell me what you are hearing right now when you're working with agents. You and I go way back, and I love kind of chatting about what we're seeing in the market, what we're hearing from other agents. And when we were going to hop on this call, I was like, "Hey, what should we cover today?" Because we're chill like that. And one thing that came up was, the market is giving a lot of agents a little bit of a challenge, and we're still producing, so we're seeing it too. Tell me what you are seeing most in the market that you think that agents are getting the most stuck on.
Yeah, it's just here's one of the hard parts where, you know, again, I if we just look at okay, like where are we at, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at 2012 through 2022, longest bull market in recorded history,
Hmm.
longest economic expansion, longest real estate expansion. Look, you could kind of show up, you could kind of wing it, and you could go out there and make multiple six figures, kind of work hard. Like it was easy street. It was the easiest decade that we've ever seen and will probably ever see again in our industry. And
Hmm.
I don't want to say ever, but I definitely probably in our careers, definitely easiest that we've seen since the inception you know, of the United States and the real estate market. So, I think it was just so, obviously you had a lot of people that got in during that time frame that weren't in, that hadn't experienced anything but a crazy seller's kind of hot market where it was easy. And that's a long time for people to set a lot of bad habits. It's interesting. I'll have
Yeah.
conversations with realtors that have been doing this 30, 40 years, and they're struggling like crazy right now because there's like two buckets. Like either they're having the best year of their career
Hmm.
or they're getting ripped apart and struggling. Like there's no in between, it seems like, with it, at least the conversations that I'm having, which is a lot. I
Yeah.
usually have about eight, coaching conversations with agents from all over, on a daily basis.
Hmm.
But even when I'm having conversation with agents that have been doing this 30, 40 years, I'm like, look, you made it through the dot-com bubble. You made it through 9/11. You made it through the great financial crisis. You're like, why are you struggling now? And again, this is just my theory from observation on this is such a long period of time for people to develop such bad habits and get comfortable where they're unwilling or they don't have the knowledge of how to adapt out of that. Because there's two things. Well, the two biggest mistakes that I see that people are making right now, and when I say right now, I mean since we saw the market shift and change in 2022. And I understand that. Look, there's going to be some of you that are watching, listen to this. Maybe there's some pockets in the Midwest, pockets in the Northeast where it's
Hmm.
still a seller's market, but about 90% of the country, and almost all countries, like I was talking to that dude in New Zealand just the other night, and he was like, look, he goes, you can go in certain pockets at his market, get a property for 150 grand. He goes, dude, the land is worth 300 G's.
Hmm.
So you're getting the land, you're getting the structure, so you got countries that are getting torn apart even, at a faster rate than the US. But about 90% of our country is either well into a buyer's market, declining market, or in that kind of softening stage heading to a buyer's market, right?
Hmm.
But within this new air environment, we can go deeper if you want to into like where we're truly at and probably what's coming. But if we look at this, those easy days are gone. So we got to have awareness of that. There's times of peace, there's times of war. Went through a decade of peace, that's done, that's gone since 2022, leading into 2023. Now it's a time of war. And this isn't to scare anybody. It's just to understand we got to have awareness so we know how to pivot and adapt accordingly. So the two biggest mistakes that I'm seeing people do though still today is they're still playing defense, meaning that they're waiting for deals to come to them.
Yeah.
They haven't pivoted yet to strategic offense. And we can unpack what I mean by that here. And then the secondary thing is they're still winging it. They're
Yeah.
not treating their business as a business. He or she that's the best operator wins. So you got to treat your business as a business. You got to play strategic offense. And if you want me to unpack on what I mean by those deeper, we definitely can. But if you haven't made those two pivots yet, yeah, you're just getting crushed right now.
I couldn't agree more, and I like how you put. I haven't thought about it the way that you said it. Of like, it's a long time to set in bad habits, and not only maybe those bad habits had a long time to set, but the world changed so quickly, especially in the last 5 years. So we've got the bad habits compounding with the massive change happening in every facet of life. And I can see why that is creating a huge level of whiplash. I want to start by walking through what you're seeing and expecting to come. And then I
Yeah.
want to get to the other 2 points.
Okay. So if we look at, okay, like again, just dealing realities, and this is not, I want to lead off with this because I don't want anybody to, I don't want to sound like Chicken Little, the sky is falling. I'm not here to deliver fear porn. Look, there's always massive opportunities to be had. And right now, there's probably as many, if not more opportunities than I've ever seen in my almost 21 years of doing this.
Hmm.
So if you are not creating the success that you want to create, it's not the market, it's not interest rates, it's not the economy, it's the lack of actions and commitments that you are taking in your own business. You and you alone dictate your own business. So I want to lead off on that because I don't want to make this sound like doom and gloom. So then from there, okay, if we look at like where we're at right now, so we are in the most unaffordable time to be alive as a US citizen to ever exist in recorded history. So if you
Hmm.
go to St. Louis, Federal Reserve St. Louis, so the Federal Reserve of St. Louis is the Federal Reserve Department that is in charge of studying the consumer. And they've got a lot of great info, they got a lot of great graphs. So I try to go to as much as I possibly can first sources for my intel. So I'm not going to go to like YouTube or social media to
Right.
get my economic data, right? I want to
Yeah.
go to first sources. So if you look at their consumer debt to savings chart, at no point in time in recorded history have we seen the gap between debt to savings with the consumer be this wide. And
Hmm.
at no point in time in history have we seen it accelerating at the rate that it is. So when I say these things, look, I don't have a crystal ball, but when people ask me like, well, what are you preparing for? Look, I'm preparing for this to be worse than the great financial crisis. I'm preparing for this to be worse than the Great Depression. I have no idea if it's going to be. All I know is the consumer is in a way worse off position. Never in recorded history has the consumer, at least in the United States, been in this bad of a position. Then at the same time, we're watching the middle class just become extinct.
Yeah.
And it's not because of the economy. Yeah, I had a mentor of mine years and years and years ago that told me, and this dude has done, by the time age of 40, he's done like $1 billion worth of exits, sold his last company for 792 million. So like very, dude came from nothing. He's very, very intelligent. And he told me years ago, he's like, look, in the very near future, we're going to see the elimination of the middle class.
Hmm.
It was born out of the Industrial Revolution. It was necessary, it was needed. It no longer is needed. We're looking at the deindustrialization of the globe now. We're in the, tech and AI space. He's like, it's going to go into the haves and the have-nots, right? This is why, in most markets, you see like the luxury market staying really strong. Like
Yeah.
in our market in Paradise Valley, whatever your higher zip code, like, dude, like they're still sellers market. They're still staying strong. They're growing. This is why like the numbers get so skewed because medium price points will look like they're, staying solid, but it's
Right.
because the haves that are able to go out there and buy assets, they are.
Well, you can say
But
the same thing about the stock market, which is looked at as a major indicator of, economic health, and they're recording massive profits and huge gains, and everyone is like, "What gains? What profit?"
yeah,
Right?
yeah. I mean, like what? It's like the stock market. It's like 5% of the
Yeah.
population, owns like 90 some percent
Right.
stock, right? So whatever the stats are,
Yeah.
but so if we look at this again, it's the haves and the
Hmm.
have-nots, right? And there's a lot of other factors going on with, deglobalization for the first time in our lifetimes. Globalization took place after World War II. Bretton Woods, the agreement was, okay, we're going to leverage our Navy, meaning the United States, our Navy. So for the first time ever, well, I don't want to say ever, but that we have awareness
Hmm.
of is that everybody, the whole world could partake in essentially free and safe global trade. But the arrangement, the agreement was, okay, you all come with us to battle against Russia, during the Cold War to defeat Russia, defeat this superpower. And that was the arrangement. Okay, we are going to make sure everybody can get rich, everybody can industrialize, everybody for the first time will have free, safe trade, but that is going away now.
Hmm.
Right. So the United States is like, hey, the Cold War has been over for 30, 40 years. It doesn't serve us anymore. So we're going away with that. If you look at all of the allied partnership, like it's just the whole world is changing. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So there's a lot of factors taking place that are going to, change the ongoing economic landscape. The other factor too with this is with this affordability crisis. People keep talking about because if you look at okay, how do we get back to 2019 affordability? Okay, incomes would either have to go up 60%,
Hmm.
interest rates would have to go from whatever they are, 6.5% down to 2.35%. And this is according to Fannie Mae, right? So this isn't me
Yeah.
just spitting out these stats, or prices on a nationwide stuff to come down 38%. Well, what's the likelihood and probability that our incomes are going to go up 60%? We're starting to see massive job layoffs, especially in the good white collar layoffs with AI coming out. In
Hmm.
10 years, you probably won't even, like Amazon probably won't even have a worker. Yeah, right. Like we were in Goodyear the other day at the YMCA during a dive tournament. We just see all these drones coming across. I'm like, what the hell are these? And Nalika next to me, she's like, dude, that's Amazon delivery.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Like it's
Yeah.
all, like you gotta have robots packaging packages, self-driving vehicle, right? So, okay, unemployment's probably gonna get harder and worse, and we're seeing that right before our eyes right now. So incomes probably aren't gonna go up 60%, across the board. Then from there, if we look at interest rates, so we've now entered an era where the human beings actually qualify for the endangered species list, which is kind of gnarly to think about. But if you look at historically, okay, each generation, at least for the last 100 years or so, has been bigger than the previous generation.
Hmm.
You know, um, so when you have that, if you look at just birth rates is like a pyramid. So when each generation is having more kids, right? Well, then because each generation is larger than the previous, there's more people to consume and there's more people to produce. Well, now if you look at the globe is essentially like an inverted pyramid. Even in the United States, we have to have 2.2 kids per couple just to have replacement rates.
Yeah.
We're
More
now
like
down to like
one and a
one.
half.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then if you look at China, I mean, China's the fastest aging country in civilization history, right? So then when you look at that, that creates a climate for high interest rates. We can't have cheap money anymore.
Yeah.
So looking at this, okay, interest rates are probably going to stay high. This affordability crisis that we're amongst, if I look at where the consumer's at, I mean, we're amongst hard times. And this is why I said earlier, like you got times of peace, you got times of war. Like we are amongst war right now. The decision that all of us need to make is which side of the equation do we want to be on? The
Hmm.
have or the have nots, because there's no more middle ground. And we're seeing this, like I kind of talked about earlier, like either people are having the best year or the worst year. There's no more middle ground. Hope I'm wrong on all of this, but this is just from my observation of what we're seeing and the intel that I'm getting from people that are much more intelligent than me. But I've just committed to, okay, hey, I want to be on the side of the haves, not the have-nots for me and my family. So we've got to again operate if things have changed. Okay, well, we can't operate the same way that we always have amongst a changing environment. Like you got to learn how to pivot, shift, and adapt to the changes. So then that way we can go out there and thrive.
So I appreciate the macro level view because a lot of real estate agents don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it and they just want like the easy fix. They just want they're screaming for the interest rates just to drop and that's going to fix everything. But clearly as you have so nicely laid out, there are so many different movements that have happened and that are compounding over decades that are causing the situation that we're in now. So it's not just one thing that has put us here. This has been a path that we've been on and now we are here. And it is really important to look at that unemotionally. All the things you said were like scared the shit out of me a little bit. Right, right. But that's okay. If we look at it unemotionally, we can look at it as data and decide to do things with it. And the biggest mistake that I see a lot of agents do is they want to just put their head in the sand. And the biggest challenge that I have had in the last year, just myself internally, and I'll be very candid with this, is having conversations with real estate agents who are experiencing every single transaction being harder than ever, or every single client needing more and more time to make a decision. And they feel like they have 80% of their clients or their pipeline right there about to make a move, but everyone's stopped right before they're about to jump, right? And for the real estate agent who needs a check or wants to see momentum or is working and working and working and not seeing immediate results, they're looking at this and getting super frustrated and almost looking at it as a number, like what is happening with these people? But we have to kind of remember that these are like the operative word being people. And what you outlined in terms of affordability being as much of a challenge as it is, that is a really big deal in people trying to make decisions and make moves that are going to alter everything that's important to them, shelter, their livelihood, their lives, right? So we're not doing a small thing in real estate. And I want to just kind of get your thoughts on that a little bit because we talked about the macro. I want to put the people perspective back into it as well. How are we supposed to work with people and help continue movements forward in regards to a real estate transaction when there is so much chaos and so much overwhelm that can delude the decision making that needs to happen in a transaction to move forward? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I get this a lot, where like, well, Josh, how do you help buyers when at least in our market here in Phoenix Metro, where things are going to get much worse before they get better, from
Mhm.
a depreciation standpoint.
Sure.
And when I say these things, just please everybody understand, I do not have a crystal ball. I just pay attention to where we're at, the
It's
trends that are
data.
taking place, right? And
Yeah.
make the best I plan the best with the intel that I have. But for me, like, dude, you just got to detach from the market. The best thing that I've ever found is, and this is one of my first mentors, gave me this advice is, hey, Josh, there's no such thing as a good market or a bad market. The market's
Yeah.
always good for somebody. As a real estate professional, it's our job to identify whom the market is good for, pivot, shift, adapt, and your business will continue to grow regardless. And that's how my business has continued to scale, whether it's been the biggest booms or the biggest crash we've seen in recorded history. I'm not saying this to brag. I just had great mentors that pointed me in the right direction and taught me these things. I'm nobody, super smart, right? That allowed my business to the market has had zero impact on my personal business.
Okay.
Now, then from there though, yeah, and this is where when it comes to pivoting, right? So let's just say, I get somebody from, so I'm next to Luke Air Force Base. They come out, they just got PCS, they're here, their papers are for 2 years. They're probably going to get relocated in a couple of years. They want to buy a house right now today.
Hmm.
Well, I'm going to have a very honest conversation with them. Hey, here's what just like I'm having with you right now is like, look, I don't have a crystal ball, but here's what we're seeing. Here's what we've seen over the last 2 years. Now, in our market, and this is not just our market, this is nationwide. If you look at, because we
Yeah.
have about 100 years of very solid recorded data on this, the average real estate correction cycle is 10 years from peak to bottom to correction.
Hmm.
Right. So let's just say, okay, we started, this down cycle in 2022. So we're 2 years into this. So we got probably another 8 years left, through this. Now the last one was 14 years. Yeah, right. We peaked in '05, hit bottomed out in 2012, took till 2019 for prices to get back to '05 prices, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to have conversations with them on this of like, hey, look, my recommendation would be, unless there's some reason, and you can, unpack this to me, we can have a just open conversation about this. But with where we're at in this market cycle, and with all the data that we're seeing right now this could turn. There's things out of my control. Maybe we enter World War III, and the Federal Reserve starts buying, $90 billion a month of mortgage-backed securities again. But again, I'm just kind of dealing with where we're at, what we know, what we have right now. So I'm going to advise them against buying unless we can go out there and find a crazy, insane, great rental for them, where then they plan on holding us as long term as part of
Hmm.
their retirement portfolio. That's a different situation story. So when I'm working with buyers, right, it is looking at, okay, do you have a secure job? Yeah, right. Are you in the financial position to be able to buy where you're not going to become a prisoner to your mortgage and a prisoner to your house? If emergency comes up, like, financially, can you truly afford it?
Hmm.
But then also we have that conversation of like, is this going to be a long-term home for you? Because like, look, if you're going to be here for the next 15, 20 years, like I'm in the house that I'm in right now, and I've been here for 13 years. I bought it in 2012, 2011 for 225. Now today it's worth, I don't know, 800,
Hmm.
700. I don't know what the price, I haven't, I'm a bad realtor. I don't run comps on my own home, but I don't plan on selling,
Right.
right? So long on a long enough timeline, like they'll do well, but I think part of this is where this is going is real estate instead of being piggy banks, going
Yeah.
back to how it was. I don't know how it was when you were a kid, but when I was a kid, it was like my friend's parents, like they lived in the same home, throughout our whole childhoods and, retired there, paid it off, and they didn't use it as this every 2, 5 year, piggy bank thing, so I think we're kind of going back to some of those older ways. So I'm just having really in-depth conversations because for me, the thing that served me really well throughout my whole entire career is clients always before commissions. Yeah, right. So I'm always going to do what I believe is in the best interest of this client, and have those upfront conversations with them, and then on the seller standpoint, now I'll help anybody that wants to sell go out there and sell. But, and we'll maybe talk about this when we get in those other two things. But there's certain niches. Like right now, I'm going to be very focused on those that need to sell versus that want to sell. So those that have a sense of urgency.
Exactly.
Because man, I talk to so many agents right now, like, man, I got all these buyers and seller leads, but everybody's on the fence, nobody's motivated. I'm like, look, you're targeting the wrong people.
Yep. I want to pull out just because I love the tactics. I picked up three things that whoever's listening can take away right now. And just from that one point that you made. So I just want to kind of like summarize before we go on to the next point. You have to educate yourself on what's happening on the environment, whether you're going to do the research from trusted sources or by surrounding yourself with the right mentors who are doing that research and are going to give it to you in layman's terms that you understand. Number two, we've got to be shooting it straight. We have to be talking and not worrying about the sale, but worrying about the client and really, really understanding their goals. And in the education side of what we're doing on the economy and the world and what we're seeing coming up, we can give them unbiased, unfiltered information that's actually relevant to them. So, like, just getting away from like scripty, gimmicky kind of speaking with clients, but bringing it down to their level and not being afraid of losing the sale because that's always going to be beneficial in the end, anyways, right? If they think that you're going to be honest and in their corner, you're going to get referrals, you're going to have a better reputation, anyways, and hopefully the sale when they do make a move. And the third one that I'm seeing is really looking at that ideal client and pivoting when necessary. And understanding that you can be intentional about who you're attracting into your business. Would you agree?
Yep,
Okay.
1000%.
What's the next point that we need to get to?
All right, so if we're talking about
Mhm.
how to identify those that need to buy and sell, because again, like if you look at, okay, the peak of what, 2021, 2022, there was about 7.5 million home sales annually throughout the country. Now we're about 3.5 million. So you got about 50% lesser people that are willing or able to transact in this marketplace. So now I know that's down significantly, right? However, the thing that should get everybody excited is you have 70% of realtors that haven't closed a transaction in what, like 18 months. So
Hmm.
the percentage of realtors that are completely checked out, that are just driving Uber or going back to a full-time job, they're just somehow maintaining their license to have it just in case. The percentage of realtors that are just exiting, right, in one way or another is greater than the lesser percentage of those transacting in real estate. So there's still plenty of business to go around. So yeah, maybe here in Maricopa County, we're not seeing our 9 or 10,000 home sales a month, but we're still seeing 5,000. I don't know about you. That's more than I need to go out there and live a good life. All
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
You give me 4 or 5 of those as a single agent per month, like I'm doing really well. Okay. So then from there, pivoting to, because like I said earlier, okay, it's no such thing as a good market, bad market. Identify whom the market is good for, meaning who's buying, who's selling, why they're buying, why they're selling, where they're going, where they're coming from. And if as long as you pivot, shift, and adapt accordingly with where that business is being had, your business will always continue to grow and scale. Again, one of my first mentors told me, he's like, Josh, if you get really good, like if you want your business to continue to grow and scale, regardless of the economy, regardless of the market, it's like get really good at acquiring and servicing traditional buyers and sellers, get really good at acquiring and servicing investors, get really good at acquiring and servicing distress. And by distress, I mean, you got 30-day late, so your pre-foreclosures, um, um, Oreos, but then you got divorces, you got probate situations where it's not it's a distress situation potentially for the family. Because one of those is always going to be strong, one of those is always going to be hot. Yeah,
Hmm.
right. So then again, right now, okay, if we know that half the people that used to be able to buy and sell are no longer are willing or able to, again, this is where I really want to target and go after those that need my services, not that want. There's a ton of people that want to buy and sell right now. What I want to know is, are they able to? Because human behavior is this. If the pain of the status quo does not outweigh the pain of the change, they will just stay put. A
Yeah.
lot of people right now that no longer like their neighborhood, no longer like the house, but paying today's prices at today's interest rates is much more painful than staying put. So they'll just withstand the pain that they're experiencing. So that's like understanding pain and pleasure is like the most important element of marketing and sales.
Yeah.
So then from there, okay, I'm going to pivot accordingly. So let's just say I want to go after sellers right now. Yeah, I could go out there and circle prospect but numbers are going to be way down. Is probably the least most effective thing that I can possibly do in this environment, this climate. Maybe that'll change a year from now, but it's just not there, right? Because again, I need not only do I need the listing appointment, but I need to work with sellers that need to sell, that are willing to price right. A lot of sellers still are living in 2022 land. Yeah, right. They want 800, but today maybe I can only get them 650. Like I need people that are, in a position where they need and willing to play the game.
Hmm.
So then from there, okay, like the niches is an example that we pivoted to. Of course, you got expireds, you got FISBOs, always have been great, always are great. Downside to those is they're very saturated. So your skill set and your process, has to be far refined. My favorite strategies, though, are where there's big opportunity, but where I have the least amount of competition, like
Hmm.
those blue ocean style strategies. So
Yeah.
if we look at those, okay, absentee owners. Now, absentee owners aren't great in all markets, but if you're in a market similar to where, Stefanie and mine is at here in Phoenix at Metro. Okay, so what do we have going on here? Okay, we got prices coming down, but we have tenant evictions up 56% from pre-pandemic levels. So you got about 30% of tenants that are behind on rents right now, across the board. So tenant evictions is going up. You got cap rate compressions happening for the first time in multiple decades, meaning rents are coming down. Like we're 8% year over year and we haven't hit a floor yet. If you look at certain markets like Scottsdale rents are down 17% year over year. So we got, evictions going up. We got rents coming down. We got prices coming down, but then we got hold costs continuing to go up. So taxes, insurance, costs of deferred maintenance. So if they want to get out of that investment property at or close to peak pricing before things get much uglier, like now is the opportune time to do that. So 2012 through 2022, we were helping insane investors on the acquisition side.
Yeah.
We have certain institutional investors that we were helping them acquire 20 units every single month, like clockwork. But then, into 2022, when the Fed started doing they started doing with their quantitative tightening process, they all stopped overnight. So now we're helping, on the disposition side of unloading all of these underperforming, non-performing, or maybe it had a good run, but now is the time to get out. So you got absentee owners, you got divorces. Now, this is where when I say adapting and pivoting, okay, for the first 18 years of my career, these next two niches are two niches that I've never targeted on for my first, one 18 years, the second one I'm jumping into right now very heavily. So divorces, 18 years, never went after them, never a niche. But then I'm sitting there one day, I'm like, man, okay, it's the most unaffordable time to be alive in US history. And this isn't getting better. Like, I want you guys to realize they can feed us whatever they want to feed us with CPI numbers. But you guys can all feel it. Like, just use your own mind. When you're going to the grocery store, when you're going to eat, I mean, even fast food. I got three kids and a family of five. Fast food's like $80.
Yeah, it's insane.
Right? But then I want you guys to understand when you have a government that is having to monetize their debt and deficit spend $1 trillion every 100 days that they're adding to the budget, that's about 8% inflationary every single year. So so the average Gen Z in their 20s today has 90% less purchase power than a boomer did in their 20s. So you can think of it as everything getting expensive, or you can think of your dollar as just becoming worth that much less. Right? So then, okay, number one, most unaffordable time to be alive as a U.S. citizen. Number one reason for divorce, financial hardship. So I started doing due diligence on that. Found, okay, divorces are on the rise. So, okay, probability of them needing to sell as they're going through this life situation change, very high. At least that was my theory, right? So we went out there, started testing it. Now it's our second best listing niche, right now today in this current market.
Yep.
Then you got people at 30-day plus lates. You got almost 14% of all FHA loans throughout the whole entire United States right now that are 30 plus days and 30-day plus late or further status. Right. So just massive opportunity on that front. And then probates. I truly believe that probates, this is the one that we're just starting to, last few months, we really started just honing in and starting to master. I think this is going to be the biggest listing wave, biggest listing opportunity we're ever going to see for the rest of our careers, maybe in lifetimes. So going after probates, if you look at this, okay, you got boomers in the silent gen, right? They own 50% of all residential real estate throughout the United States. You got 150 million units. So we're talking 75 million housing units in the United States owned by boomers in the silent gen. 9% silent gen, 41%, boomer owned, right? Then from there, Charles Schwab did an intensive study years ago that found that 70% of families that inherit these estates sell them. They either don't want to or can't afford to keep them. So 70% of them selling. So you start looking at this, dude, the numbers, that's something like 52 million residential listings that are going to be hitting the market over the next 2 decades. Unfortunately, 40% of those two generations will not be here within 10 years from today. So this is what I mean. So when I said earlier of like, identify whom the market is good for, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good for them. Like when I'm reaching out to somebody that's behind on mortgage payments, they didn't intend for that. Nobody buys a home like, oh, I'm just going to buy this home and then go default on my, it's not a good situation for them. It's a terrible situation for them. They didn't plan on it, but they had to make a choice. Do I put food on the table for my wife and kids or my family, or do I make the mortgage payment? Right. So it's a hardship that they've experienced, but I have an ability to be able to help them avoid foreclosure. And then a lot of these people, because they have great equity or good equity, they just can't afford the payments anymore. We're able to help pay off their debts in certain situations, get all their debt wiped out, help them go pay, cash for a rental for the next 12 months and completely change around their situation. So looking at, okay, who's in this situation? Another way of looking at this is who can I serve at the highest level that truly needs my services right now in this current economic and market climate that we're in.
I want to pause here. There's a couple of things that I want to share. I was thinking as you're talking about those different pivots, I was feeling scared and overwhelmed at the beginning of our conversation, facing the reality of where we're at. And now, in the eye of looking at opportunity and all the opportunities that you just ran off the top of your head, I'm excited. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that we can start and we can start working towards. But if anyone's listening to this and thinking, wow, I cannot believe how knowledgeable Joshua is. Like he knows all these numbers off the top of his head. He has all these ideas. Like he's working on so much. That could never be me because I don't know anything about macroeconomics. I don't know anything about Charles Schwab studies. This is why you have to either go seek out the information. If you don't understand what Joshua is discussing here, if you don't know what he's sharing, and if this feels out of reach for you, you have to recognize what business you are in and that we are going to be impacted from every side from these different things. And so it is one of the ramifications of becoming a realtor. You do have to take it upon yourself to study the market. You have to study macroeconomics. You don't have to become like a whiz, but you have to know enough to see the writing on the wall because we are all seeing pretty obvious signs of distress in the market, but we should understand why that is occurring and what we can do with that data. And if you don't want to take it upon yourself to learn and understand those things, then you need to be surrounding yourself with the right mentors like Joshua, who can help give you the information so you can just get the cheat code and get to work. Just wanted to really quickly highlight that for anyone who might be feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, and if I can add to that point, it's like, okay, I jumped in the business in 2005, was 23-year-old college dropout, had like no life experience, no, yeah, I've never been successful at anything I've ever done in my life. But, I was ready to go out there and at that point in my life, I had the burning desire to succeed because I was sick and tired of never making more than $10 an hour, being a, loser financially and so I had that burning desire to succeed, but I spent the time finding the right mentor. Now, this is somebody that was a top agent, one of the top team leaders in the country. He just happened to own the brokerage, so I was able to join the brokerage. Didn't have to join his team because I knew I, wanted to build a business and, build my own team. So I didn't know these things, but I had him. Like, okay, I jumped in 2005, and about halfway through 2006 was very similar to like 2021. Multiple offers on every single property. It was at that time the biggest boom, biggest bubble we'd ever seen in real estate. We're getting out of that, and what we just experienced surpassed that now. But it was just craziness. But things started changing. I didn't know what to do, dude. I was 24, 25. Like I had no idea. Yeah, right. But I went to my mentor, Nate. I'm like, dude, what do I do? Now, this is a dude that had been through, the 87 crash, .com bubble, all these different things. And he's like, short sales and REO. He didn't have to necessarily even tell me how to get into it. Like he just point me in the right direction. Yeah, right. I got Google. I can figure out the rest. I just needed to know what direction to point into. So to Stephanie's point, it can take time to gather all this intel, but I had my best, most successful years without necessarily having the intel, but I had the right person to guide me in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah. You have to get out of the space of waiting for people to come in to your DMs,
Yeah.
start texting you. You have to go look for the opportunity. You have to make it happen. And that's one thing where I'm having conversations with agents sometimes and I just want to shake them, not because I think they're dumb, but out of compassion for like, look, I understand this is hard and I understand you have the weight of the world on your shoulders because you've got a family to take care of and you have people who are relying on you to be successful. Why are you sitting and waiting? Like go so if you have been in that space and you feel frozen in fear by how fast things have changed and how challenging the market is, this is your science. It's start taking action right away. This is the market where we have to go out and find every single opportunity that we can. And to your point, I got into real estate in 2014. We met in 2014, full time 2015. And it was kind of the same thing. We didn't know anything other than just kind of hustling for every single deal and just forcing deals together, not forcing, but trying to make it work. And so when things were very fast and very easy in 2020, 2021, when you're just reacting and facilitating in the market, I hated it. I hated it because there was a lot of things. It was great to earn the money, like money's fantastic, sure. But I was waiting for the shoe to drop because that was never going to be, it was not good for anybody. It's not good to be in that kind of a frenzied market. A lot of people were probably put in positions that they wish that they weren't in now. I don't know. I guess we'll see because they're going to be, but it's just, it's okay to not be in a very easy, fluid market. It's okay to be in a market that feels more stressful. and to have to work a little harder for every single deal because again, like these are massive assets that we're helping people offload or purchase. It's not a little thing. And I think where I get really frustrated is when real estate agents look at it like in black and white, like numbers on paper, rather than what every single deal represents. I don't know if that's too nuanced, but or esoteric of me, but that's something that I've been feeling in the last year. Can you speak to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, 1000%. So, like I said earlier, putting clients always before commissions.
Yeah.
And then look, if we just speak at this from a business aspect, okay, every smart operator in any industry, what do they obsess over? They obsess over lifetime value of a customer.
Yep.
So the mistake that I see in so many agents, like maybe your average commission's 10 G's, and they think of this, oh, this is that client's 10 G's. Like, dude, no, I look at every single client as worth a minimum of 100 grand in my business. Yeah, right.
Mm.
So if I do my job and I go above and beyond and take great care of them and then keep that relationship alive after the fact, between all the repeat and referral business that they give me over the lifetime of my career, they should be worth, we're talking 10 commissions.
Hmm.
Right. And then from there too, like you don't know where the business is going to come in. I remember it was a long time ago, but I mean probably like 15 years ago. So it was in Surprise, Arizona. Walk in, it's this retired couple, and they have a beautiful 2,000 square foot single level home, and they're touring their home. And I just see them light up as they're showing me their home, and all their kids and grandkids are like close by and like within like a couple mile radius, like like everything, like the full situation, full scope was just like perfect for their scenario. And so I sat down with them and I'm like, before I got in the listing presentation, I'm like, hey, look, I just got to ask you guys something. Like, why are you wanting to sell? I can see how much you love this home by the way that you talk about it and the energy that I can just see that you have.
Hmm.
All your kids around, all your grandkids around, the house, like you got the house paid off. Like, why do you want to sell? And by going through that conversation, it gave them clarity that they didn't want to sell. They just thought it was the next thing to do to down, go from 2,000 to 1,500 square feet, and but they
Hmm.
loved the home, they loved everything. Well, they've been like my top referrers throughout my career, yeah, or
Yeah.
close to it, yeah, right. And they tell everybody, oh, Josh is our realtor. He's like, I've never actually sold them a house, but I've sold their grandkids' homes. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I've sold their pretty much homes to all their family members. Yeah, right. So, just again, always doing what's best by the clientele. I mean, I had an investor client not too long ago that reached out to me that wants to invest about $5 million here in Phoenix Metro. And I was like, dude, wait.
Hmm.
I'm like, unless you're in 1031 and we need to, we need to reallocate that money. But right now, dude, if I were you, I'd just go stick it in short-term T-bills, go get your guaranteed 4 or 5% interest rate. Wait, because in a couple years from now, and I'll let you know when the market is right to come in and start investing. But and I explained to him, why with rents and prices and what we're seeing, and he appreciated that intensely and massively. And well, I mean, we'll see, if that, but I think it was the right thing I believe to do out there and do,
Yeah.
but there's enough business to be had of people that need to buy and sell right now. So I'm not
Yeah.
worried about just, like I'm never going to take advantage of people in that scenario and situation. So yeah, I think of, and I see this too a lot on the lead follow up. Like a lot of my agents will come to me, and they'll start hitting every objection. So I'll give an example. I had an agent a couple years ago come to me, was on my team at the time, and he was just, I don't know, had like a dozen different objections that he was getting that he wanted to work through and role play with me. So I was like, all right, dude, timeout. Yeah, right. As we started going through several of these, I'm like, all right, timeout. I knew what his core issue was, right? Now he has a daughter at the time that was in college. I said, man, just pretend. Okay, your daughter graduates college, goes, gets her dream job, making great money, has her dream job, and she's in a state location area that you can't be her realtor. Maybe you don't know any of the realtors refer that business. So now she becomes a lead in some random realtors database, the most special, important person to you in your life. How do you want her to be treated throughout every element of that process to the point where when you fly out there to go see her and celebrate her new home, well, you're like, hey, before I leave, I got to go shake the hand of this, meet this realtor and shake the hand of this realtor that took such amazing care of the most important person to me in my life. And I said to him, I'm like, dude, just treat every lead like it's your daughter. It's somebody's daughter, somebody's son, somebody's
Yeah.
mom, somebody's dad, somebody's grandparent. Like they're not. I understand that we have naming conventions because that's how business works. But these are human beings with real feel, fears, concerns. Just walk them through it and treat it. And if somebody isn't looking to, if it's not in their best interest, I'll be the first one to tell them that. But then also in the hard conversation on the flip side, if they need to sell, you know, um, but they don't like the price I'm telling them, okay, I'm going to have that hard conversation on the flip side of that.
Hmm.
Really walk them through the cost of waiting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think unfortunately a lot of agents don't even let themselves get there. They don't think that far. because they're in that scarcity mindset where they need a deal.
Yeah.
They feel like their back's against the wall. And you have to shake yourself out of that because that is a decision. If you're staying in that mental state, that is a decision. And the best thing that we can do when things feel hard or things feel sticky, especially when we see other agents out there crushing it, and you're like, I know that person isn't any smarter than I am. I know I'm working hard. Why is it happening for them and not me? You've got to shake yourself out of it and get into the position to actually be having that forward momentum again. So what's the last point? Remind me.
So,
I don't want to
okay.
misstate it.
So, we talked about strategy.
Mhm.
Now, so strategic offense. So I'll add one last thing to that, and then we'll get into
Okay.
treating your business as a
Okay.
business. Okay, strategy just meaning, okay, you don't want to shotgun things out. You want to operate like a sniper with a sniper scope of, again, of targeting those that have the highest probability of needing your services in this market. And again, on the buy side and the sell side, whichever we want to focus on, or if you want to focus on both. Then offense. Right now, we do not want to wait for anything to come to us. We can't play defense. Some people are like, oh, Josh, you're getting a probates, getting divorces. What do you go get with all these attorneys? No. I'm not saying to not go do those, but I'm not going to ever rely on that. That is me playing defense, waiting to be spoon-fed business. So I'm going to get the data, get the intel, get the contacts. I'm reaching out to them. Everything I'm going to do in a market like this, my fate is in my own hands. Where if I know if I do X amount of dials, X amount of reach outs, X amount of conversations, X amount, I like my business is now predictable. I'm taking it into my own hands. I'm not waiting for anything to fall on my lap. So, got to play strategic offense. Then number two, treating your business as a business, who he or she that's the best operator wins. So what do I mean by this? So the first step is it starts off with getting extreme clarity, what you want, why you want it, why it's important to you, right? So, and not just in the, hey, here's where I need to be at the end of 2026 to solve my immediate problems. Yeah, identify that, but I want you to identify your 5-year goal, your long-term goal, your exit strategy. Think about all the way through with this, because real estate is a vehicle that allows you to build the life that you want to build. Get clarity on the life that you want to build, because if you don't, the probability is greater than not that you're going to accidentally build yourself into a metaphorical prison versus building yourself that metaphorical empire. So I always look at this if clarity allows us to know the mountain that we're going to go out there and climb. And again, you don't want to get to the top of the mountain just realizing that you waste a decade of your life climbing the wrong dang mountain. So that's why, all sorts of clarity. Then from there, okay, now that we have the mountain that we're going to climb, so we know what our immediate and then our long-term goals are, then, okay, we need to reverse engineer the best strategy plan with precision to get us from where we're at to where we want to go. So when I say with precision, you should know each and every single day exactly what you need to do to win to make your goals a reality. And the blessing that we are in the industry, it's not like we're Elon Musk trying to revolutionize interstellar space travel and get us to Mars to save the human species. Yeah, right. Like I
Mhm.
look at this and people will come to me like, "Oh, Josh, you're so good, you're so smart with all this." I'm like, "No, I'm just a really good pirate." Right? I figured out what I want. I go find somebody that's done it. I study what they've done. I just steal what I can, right? I just
Yeah,
so
swipe and
R&D.
adapt.
Yeah, R&D, man, rip off and duplicate, right?
Yeah.
So, but then from there, I'm going to find that right proven plan with precision. So I know every day, every week, what I need to do to go out there and win. So got to make sure that you have that right strategy plan again to get you from where you're at to the top of that mountain. Then from there, it comes down to then the next step of this is skill sets. So we got clarity, strategy, skill sets. So now you need to ask yourself based on the strategy plan and or strategy plans that you are implementing and executing on, what are the skill sets that you must master to go out there and create success? So okay, like building a business like through Instagram, like I know has been a big leg of your business, Stefanie, is a different skill set than if I'm cold calling or if
Mhm.
I'm doing open houses or if I'm doing Zillow leads or doing Facebook leads, right? Like every different method can potentially require different skill sets. So I want you to identify what are the skill sets that I need to hone in, that I need to master so I can maximize and optimize this strategy plan, this opportunity that I'm going after. Then from there, it's processes and systems. So in process and systems get very confused inside of our industry. The reason why I say processes then systems is systems only exist because of processes, right? So if I
Right.
look at processes, these are step-by-step actions that we are taking step by step to execute on our strategy plan. Here's step one, here's step two, here's step three, here's step four. Then the only reason systems exist is a place for our processes to live to ensure we execute on them the same way each and every single time and execute on them on the most effective and efficient manner. So
Mhm.
I'm developed, so it's like for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, it's like, okay, here's my playbook. Inside here, every one of my internal processes for anything A to Z inside my real estate business. Right. The playbook itself is the system. Inside here are the processes, right? So I
Mhm.
look at processes are the recipes, system is the cookbook.
Love
Yeah,
that.
right. So we want it that's way we can, make sure it's duplicatable, replicatable, and part of systems is going to be tracking. Like you got to make sure you're tracking every central KPI in your business, only way to create predictability. Also, the only way to identify areas in your business you need to improve upon. So somebody that's not tracking their business, I look at it like, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm sick. And then I tell the doctor, hey, I want you to fix me, but you're not allowed to run any tests. So then they're in a position where it's like, okay, well, I guess here's 50 pills. Now, if one works, we're not going to know which one worked. Like we got to know the data, number of leads per lead source, number of reach outs, number of conversations, appointment set, appointment conductions, clients closings, right? So then I know my overall conversion ratio. But then in there, like let's just say your appointment set to conduction rate is 50% industry average. Well, it's very easy to get that to 75%. There's just four quick, easy, simple things to do to increase that. But if we don't know if that's a
Right.
bottleneck, if that's a hole in the bucket, we can't plug it. Yeah, right. So it's the only way to create predictability, only way to make smart strategic decisions in your business. So make sure you got your tracking in place too. And then the last element, so we got clarity, we got strategy, we got skill set, we got process and systems. And the last element's leverage, right?
Mhm.
So at some point, if you want to go from doing 4 deals a month to 8 deals a month to 16 deals a month, if you want to build a mega team like I did where you're closing 700 units plus a year, like you need help, But the reason why I have this at the last is like people that you plug in only going to be as good as the process and systems that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like nobody can show you their greatness if you don't plug them into proven processes and systems. The systems allow me to inspect what I expect. The processes guides them on exactly what to do.
So I have this come up all the time in the agents who I work with, and I was just having a conversation yesterday with an amazing agent. I've worked with her for a couple of years, and seasoned agent, absolute rock star. She is dealing with like 8 to 9 deals at a time. And she came to me and she said, "Okay, I don't know what else to add. Like, if I feel like my systems are in place, but I get so busy, it's hard to keep track of everything, and then things start to slip. And I've got it together. I'm feeling good, but I know I'm not going to be able to continue growing or maintaining with an easier pace." And I was just kind of giving her that look, like, "Girl, it's not a what, it's a who."
Yeah.
And we can't have the right people until we have the right systems to plug them into. And I think that's the biggest challenge that a lot of real estate agents who are trying to scale run into is they immediately think, oh, more people, and they try to make the hire. They throw them into the deep end. They don't have any set expectations or solid onboarding and training because they don't really know what they should be doing anyway. And that person nopes out after a month because they're like, this person has no idea what they're doing. Things are chaos. I don't have what I need to be successful in this role. And maybe they didn't hire the right person for the role because they didn't even do that research, right? And that realtor then assumes, oh, nobody wants to work hard.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever care about it as much as I do, when really you're just kind of a poor manager.
Yeah, it was one of the hardest lessons I learned was like, okay, quickly I learned how to be a good realtor.
Mhm.
But then I realized that being a great realtor, especially when you're starting to scale a team, has very little to do with your ability of growing a successful team. It's again,
Yeah,
how good of an operator are you? And I went through that too. I was just going through people like crazy, but I'd hire people I liked,
right.
right? I didn't have but then I was like, man, I spent all this time mastering listing presentations, buyer presentations, tonality, human connection, all the things that allowed me to, scale my own production. But I'm like, I put zero time into mastering the hiring process,
Mhm.
and it's one thing that I mean, through great coaches like you, it exists out there. But when I was going through it, like that was something that wasn't, I still don't think in our industry it's really coachable. It's like every single coach out there outside of a select few like yourself, the vast majority in this industry, I feel like teaches how to get a high paying job.
Yeah,
Teach us
yeah,
how to,
that's a great way to
right?
put it.
And then we get bottlenecked because now, well, dude, I want to build a business. Like it took me getting out of real estate to hire, Fortune 500, CEOs or not CEOs, but consultant firms
Mhm.
that help startups and that like to identify the right process to help me really gain that knowledge and it took some time, but it was probably the most costly mistake that I made because I spent years just winging the hiring process. Even though I preach to everybody else, you don't wing it,
Mhm.
but that part of my business, it was so painful to learn.
It's easy to have a blind spot there for
Yeah.
sure, especially when you have everything else going on. Well, Josh, I want to be a good steward of your time. I feel like we could be rapping forever. And I want to acknowledge you because for the last 10 years, we've known you just working kind of near the same circles. And I don't know anyone who's been as generous and as consistently available to help other agents grow and continue to be successful. And I just really appreciate that about you. And recently, you and I have partnered over at a new firm, EXP, well, new to me. And can you share a little bit about what that's looking like for you? Because you also recently moved there less than a year ago.
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, I appreciate the kind words, and it's been an honor, knowing you and Bryce for this last decade and watching what you guys have built. Because I was blessed to meet you like right when you guys were starting this
You were the
journey.
first agent that we met.
Yeah, and watching you guys just explode, it's been so awesome. It's been so great, great to see and everything that you're doing. So then from there, yeah, with EXP, so I was always looking for in a platform that would allow all of us to win. Because I went from individual agent to team leader, then doing some of the brokerage side stuff, but I never felt really good about that because, like, look, dude, I'm an agent, I'm a realtor. I've always seen myself from the lens of as a realtor, and it was like, okay, team leader kind of wins, but it's like broker owners always won. And then when I started getting into that realm and that world, yeah, I mean, we were going out there and creating success, helping other broker owners create success, but the agents still weren't winning. It
Mhm.
just never sat right with me. And that took me down a path of about a year of just exploring different platforms where everybody could truly win, that would allow everybody to be an owner in a company in a way that could develop actual exit strategies. Because most realtors are on this work till you die plan. And I have so many friends and people I care about that I see in this industry that
Yeah.
next thing you know, they're in their 70s and not selling real estate because they want, there's nothing wrong with selling real estate in your 70s if you want to sell real estate in your 70s. Something wrong with it if you are doing it because you have to and you didn't, plan for retirement. But in real estate, like we don't get pensions, we don't get 401ks. And so I went on this year journey and did something I never thought I would do, which was I identified that EXP was hands down the best platform that had all the pieces I was looking for. So I made, but again, when I say I never thought I would join them, I think I physically talked more crap about this company than anybody alive for the previous, 10 years that I had awareness of them,
I don't know. I
but
might beat you on that.
yeah, yeah.
I was like the OG hater, I feel like for
Yeah,
sure.
when I joined, I had so many people, man, I never thought I'd see the day. I'm like, me neither, dude. But like once I saw it, I saw it. I just
Yeah.
the honest truth for me was, I just never gave it a fair look. I had preconceived
Yeah.
judgments and notions of what the company was and is. But man, I've been there now 10 months. We built now 367 agent organization in that 10 months. So, started from scratch again, and built that up. And, it just allows a platform where what I love about it is the more that I help others grow, the more I grow.
Yeah.
So it allows me for the first time ever to really just open up all my playbooks, all my coaching, all my mentorship, for free to anybody that partners with us, without having to charge them arm and leg. Cause how it gets like with people that want one-on-one coaching with me. I'm like, well, dude, I have to charge you $1,000 an hour for my time because it's
Yeah.
time with my wife and kids and business. And, and it's like, how do I give and deliver $1,000 an hour of value where this is that model where all just synergizes, where we can all support each other. And yeah, it's best decision I've ever made. And now that you're over here with us, what I love about this is with how just it's structured is, if anybody ends up deciding to partner with us, meaning like
Mhm.
partnering with you, not only do they get you and all your amazing insights and coaching and training and mentorship, but they get all of mine, plus
Mhm.
my business partner, Mike Schrar, who's the best in the world at AI and social media. So we all kind of have a different skill set that we bring to the table to be able to support our agents and teams and broker owners that are choosing to join this platform to succeed at the highest level.
Yeah, for sure. For Bryce and I, it's always been people first, model second. And that was the order in which we made the decision to move because it was a massive decision for us too. So we've been super happy with the move and super happy with the partnership with you guys. But if anyone is listening and this episode, this conversation has made you realize, ooh, there's a lot that I can control that I'm choosing right now not to take control of, then what I'd invite you to do is I'm going to have a link in the caption, book a call. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about your business and identify some of the areas of opportunity that you're not taking advantage of right now. We'll map out those next steps. And then if you want to see what it looks like to get additional support from there, we'll have the conversation. Cool. Josh, thank you so much for hopping on with me today. Great conversation.
Yep, 1,000%. It's been an honor.
Thanks.